And we're joined now by Eric Howe, Director of the Patrick Leahy Lake Champlain Basin Program, and Meg Modley, who is the Basin Program's Aquatic Invasive Species Management Coordinator. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for coming back. It's good to see you again. Eric, you bring together stakeholders who weigh in every 3 years on the trends and the threats facing Lake Champlain and the efforts to tackle and address them. When you unveiled the report a couple of months ago in June, you expressed optimism that while there are challenges, the lake's water quality, for the most part, is good.
It is, and thanks, Tom. It's great to be back again here with you. The lake is doing very well. Despite a lot of pressures that we and Mother Nature are putting on the lake, the general condition of the lake is actually in pretty good shape. We've seen improvements in a number of areas that we track around the health of the lake. The larger questions that folks often ask us is it safe to swim in the lake? Can we swim in the lake? Is it safe to drink the water out of the lake? And can we eat the fish out of the lake? And generally speaking, the answer to all three of those questions is yes, with some caveats, but yes. Regarding swimming, the concerns there are usually around cyanobacteria blooms and E. coli bacteria levels, particularly around our public beaches and public access areas. 164,000 people drink water out of the lake. It's all treated, of course, but many people may not even know that they're drinking water from Lake Champlain. But it is a water supply, and it is monitored for over 80 contaminants, and largely those test results come back negative or below levels of concern. And then regarding fishing, good news there as well, and that the fisheries, lake trout, the salmon and walleye and bass fisheries are doing great. And the even better news, the mercury levels in the fish appear to be coming down.
Phosphorus has been one of the biggest threats. There have been efforts for a number of years now to reduce the nutrients, to sediment the phosphorus getting into the lake. Are they paying off?
Those investments at the federal and state and provincial and local levels appear to be paying off, yes. The investments that we all are doing in improving the phosphorus conditions of the lake, or concentrations of the lake, seem to be paying off. We need to do a lot more still and maintain it, but there's light at the end of the tunnel.
And are the trouble spots mostly to the north, St. Albans Bay, Missisquoi Bay, and north up into Quebec?
Those parts of the lake are shallow and warm and naturally prone to having more phosphorus. Those parts of the lake are typically well above the target concentrations for phosphorus in the lake. However, for Missisquoi Bay in particular, we have seen the amount of phosphorus in the bay declining. It's not at the target, the goal yet, but it's still above, but it is headed in that direction. So that's really good news.
And Meg, what are the trends that we're seeing related to fisheries and aquatic invasive species?
Yeah, so the fishery in Lake Champlain is very strong. We still see a lot of people coming from many different states and provinces traveling to Lake Champlain to recreate, to fish. Those tournaments still bring a lot of resources and money to the basin from folks coming to fish. The biggest news is the lake trout and the lake trout recruitment, which means that there are naturally reproducing lake trout that are growing in ages. So they're catching these fish that are now 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old that have been naturally reproduced, and they don't have a fin clip which would represent that we're rearing them in the hatcheries and then stocking them in the lake. So the resource managers are really excited about this, and they've reduced their stocking by half of lake trout. And so we may be on track to have a naturally reproducing and recruiting lake trout population in Lake Champlain in the next 5 to 10 years, which would be phenomenal.
And no new invasive species in the past several years.
Yes, so the last invasive species to enter Lake Champlain was in 2018. That was the fishhook water flea, which is similar to the spiny water flea.
And there are threats knocking at the door, in particular the Round Goby, an invasive fish that could be a real threat to the lake trout if it makes it to Lake Champlain?
Yes, so lake trout in particular like to lay their eggs in between rocks, and those are places that if Round Goby made it into Lake Champlain, they are both aggressive egg eaters, but also like that habitat very much. Other concerns we have about goby coming into Lake Champlain, they would likely outcompete some of our native benthic fish species like the darters, and we're also concerned they have been known to carry viral hemorrhagic septicemia, which is a fish disease basically that can affect over 25 different species of freshwater fish.
And we've heard just within the past few weeks that there are signs that the Round Goby is making its way further north in the Champlain Canal, which flows directly into Lake Champlain.
Round Goby making their way across the Erie Canal to the confluence of the Mohawk and the Hudson was a big concern, and the Hudson River is now looking into that population and the impacts there. They have turned north. They have to go upstream in the Hudson River towards the land cut portion of the Champlain Canal. So we've detected them below Lock C1 for a number of years of our monitoring, and we have collected fish in hand. But just last month, they were able to get a positive eDNA detection above Lock C2. So what that means is we need more sampling, and we have a plan in place to do that. And luckily, we have a threshold action response plan that's being co-managed and implemented by New York State DEC as well as Canals and the New York Power Authority. And what they've done is move from just double flushing Lock C1 and C2. They've advanced that to the next stage, which means they're double flushing in addition to C1 and C2, Lock C3 and C4, and doing scheduled locking there as well.
There has been talk about some type of a barricade that might prevent them from advancing.
I think that the species will naturally start to move north through the system if there's habitat and food to eat. And yes, I think it is important to remind us of the need for a solution that addresses all different types of taxa. It's not just about Round Goby. As you mentioned, there are a few other species we're worried about coming into Lake Champlain, and those include the invasive quagga mussel, which is like the evil twin of the zebra mussel. Some other aquatic invasive plants we're worried about, including hydrilla. And then there are other fish species that could move through the system, or viruses that we don't want coming in. So the idea is we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers through authorization through the Water Resources Development Act to identify solutions that could maintain recreational use and passage through the lock systems in the Champlain Canal, but prevent the transit of those invasive species.
You mentioned the quagga mussel. Underwater archaeologists like Art Cohn continue to warn that they fear an invasion of the lake by the quagga mussel could be a real threat to the underwater shipwrecks that are on the bottom of the lake, that they eventually could colonize on the ships and destroy them. And that's part of the reason that Art Cohn is talking about raising one of those famous shipwrecks, the Spitfire, from the bottom of the lake. But they're worried that the quagga mussels will make it to the lake and that they could be a real threat.
Quagga mussels are known to be able to reproduce and occupy deeper water habitats than the zebra mussel. So many of the historic shipwrecks on the bottom of Lake Champlain are really preserved in cold water and in sediment. And if the quagga mussel does get into Lake Champlain, it could go below that depth that zebra mussels can reproduce in, attach to some of the fixings, and really start to corrode or deteriorate some of these historic artifacts.
Howe, Meg Modley, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.